18th day of October 2012. Good evening and welcome to KTN Prime. I'm Eric Latte.
And I am Anne Kiguta, and what an action-packed day it has been. We've got all the details right here on KTN Prime. Let's take a look at our top stories this hour.
Sonko bribes parliamentary staff to drop assault claims. Embattled Nancy Baraza finally throws in the towel.
Raila stirs up Western Kenya as he spares with Mudavadi. And police net illegal drugs on transit to Mombasa from Kampala. Thank you for joining us. Controversial legislator Mike Sonko is once again on the spot over his strange behavior. After the sergeant-at-arms filed a complaint with the police that Sonko had assaulted him, but later withdrew that case, Sonko today alleged that he had bribed the official to withdraw it. KTN's Wilkison Nyabwa reports on the bizarre incident.
On Thursday morning, Makadara Member of Parliament Gideon Mbuvi, popularly known as Mike Sonko, informed the world that he intended to resign in light of assault allegations levelled against him. But when he appeared at Parliament, he was singing a different tune and wielding a statement allegedly signed by Sergeant-at-Arms Harun Omom Okal, withdrawing the complaint of assault he filed against Sonko. KTN could not establish whether or not the letter was written by the Sergeant-at-Arms, but it had Okal's name and signature withdrawing the assault complaint. The saga started early this week when Sonko and Attorney General Githu Muigai are reported to have exchanged words while at the Parliament buildings. The Sergeant-at-Arms then came between the two and is said to have taken a blow from the MP for his troubles. He later reported the incident at the Parliament police station. So what could have happened to make him change his mind about pursuing the matter?
Nilikuwa nakuja kujiuzulu kama mbunge ya Makadara, niwache Mungu akue shahidi yangu na wakili wangu. Lakini wakati nilifika pale, mzee Okal mwenyewe ambaye ndio complainant mpya amejitokeza, alinizuia akasema Sonko usirecord.
According to Sonko, the two parties met at a local hotel on Thursday to iron out their differences. Sonko says Okal, who was allegedly accompanied by a police officer, asked for money in order to drop the charges, holding out as evidence an alleged recording of their conversation.
Kwa ile kanda nikipeana pesa ambayo sitawapatia kwa sasa sababu bado ni evidence yangu, ingawaje mzee amewithdraw case, lakini mzee ni kama ana-advisiwa.
But far from resolving the controversy, Okal's statement withdrawing his earlier claims serves simply to further muddy the waters. Sonko now claims it was a case of extortion.
Nilikuwa nataka kupruvia dunia hapa bunge corruption inaanza kwa malango mpaka kwa choo, mpaka sisi wabunge tunakuwa extorted na watu wengi.
While in the same breath claiming he and Okal have agreed to forgive and forget the events that led to the controversy.
Yenyewe niko na evidence. Lakini kama mzee ameomba msamaha, kama Mungu anasamea, mimi Sonko ni nani nilete madai kuhusu mzee?
So did he or did he not strike Okal? And was the meeting between the two aimed at putting the matter to rest, or a cleverly orchestrated ploy to gain the upper hand as well as the sympathy of Kenyans? If indeed he offered the money, was it the right thing to do? And who is the real victim? Wilkison Nyabwa, KTN Prime.
Gideon Mbuvi, did he bribe? Did he not? That story is the topic of our big question tonight. We are asking you, should Sonko resign for allegedly bribing parliamentary staff? Should Sonko resign for allegedly bribing the parliamentary staff? Send us brief comments beginning with a yes or no to our SMS number 8040. We'll be sampling them as we go along in this bulletin, and then we'll also give you the poll result at the very end. Please remember to give us your name and where you're texting in from.
Nancy Baraza has put to rest the public scrutiny into her behavior by tendering her resignation as Deputy Chief Justice and Vice President of the Supreme Court. The move ends the public service career of a woman who was celebrated after her elevation to the second most powerful position in the judiciary. And as KTN's Ansoi Mwendia reports, it all started with the pinching of a guard's nose on New Year's Eve.
Nancy Baraza, a woman with a confident gait and ever-alert visage, has chosen to bow down to pressure and leave public office for assaulting a security guard on the 31st of December at Nairobi's village market. In her letter of resignation, Baraza says that although she would have preferred an appeal in the Supreme Court challenging the recommendations of the tribunal that probed her conduct, she laments that she does not see herself getting a fair and impartial hearing before the court as currently constituted. Baraza points out that some members of the appeal court set to hear her appeal played a part in the Judicial Service Commission, which petitioned the president to appoint the tribunal that probed her conduct. In her view, therefore, the two judges could not logically and legally sit on her appeal. Baraza has more gripes against her former boss, the Chief Justice. She says Willy Mutunga recently endorsed the tribunal recommendations against her, a matter that is the subject of her appeal. This, Baraza says, compounds her fear that she would not get a fair trial before a bench in which the CJ participates.
I, Nancy Makoha Baraza.
The former DCJ also asserts her rejection of the tribunal findings, which she terms injudicious and not founded in known principles of law. The tribunal, chaired by former Chief Justice of Tanzania, Augustino Ramadhani, recommended Baraza's removal from the judiciary for gross misconduct and misbehavior.
Lady Justice Nancy Makoha Baraza, the Deputy Chief Justice and the Vice President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, be removed from office.
The 7-member tribunal found that Baraza did in fact pinch the nose of Rebecca Kerubo and threatened to shoot her, noting that her conduct was demeaning of her office. Although the tribunal acknowledged Baraza's brilliant career in which she made an outstanding contribution to the nation as an advocate and commissioner of the Constitution Review Commission, it also pointed out that she lacked the temperament and ability to perform judicial functions, a factor that fell short of the requirement of the Constitution and the Judicial Code of Conduct. Baraza was also accused of contacting Kerubo in June, asking her to alter her evidence. This move was interpreted by the tribunal as an indicator that the accused could repeat the misconduct in future. Baraza's appeal failed to take off on Wednesday after her lawyer failed to show up. The appeal has now been withdrawn. Following the twist of events, Kerubo's lawyer said she is contemplating filing a suit for compensation.
Our client feels vindicated that after all her desire for justice has yielded fruits.
In her parting shot, Baraza asked from Kenyans their forgiveness where she fell short, saying, "We are all human." Ansu Mwendia, KTN Prime.
Police in Nairobi are holding a middle-aged woman who was arrested with at least 10 kilograms of a narcotic substance with a street value of 80 million shillings. Police are saying that the drugs were impounded on a public bus on transit from Kampala to Mombasa. Here is Dennis Nsarigo with a report.
The woman said to be behind the largest narcotic seizure in the past few months in the country is led away by police officers hours after she was arrested. Police say the middle-aged woman, identified as Grace Nandalua, was arrested allegedly transporting a psychotropic narcotic substance, methamphetamine, in a sack when she arrived in Nairobi from Kampala Thursday morning.
And that individual, a woman, a female adult, alighted at the bus station in Nairobi. She claimed her luggage. After taking possession of her luggage, our officers arrested her.
The drugs were packed as baking flour in a sack full of bananas and could have passed off as food. The person who packed the drugs must have had an idea that food such as bananas are rarely subjected to screening at the Uganda-Kenyan border point in Busia. Due to its high potential for abuse, methamphetamine is only available through prescription by a medical doctor, and the narcotic substance is mostly used as a stimulant. Police suspect the drug consignment with a street value of 80 million shillings could have been on transit through Kenya, as the drug is not consumed in huge quantities in the country. The discovery has raised alarm bells in security circles because such quantities of the drugs have not been imported from potential drug traffickers using public means in the recent past. The route chosen by the drug traffickers also raises concerns. Those who traffic the drugs mostly use the Kenya port of Mombasa as a transit point for the drugs into Kenya. A temporary pass on the woman's passport indicated that the suspect has been to southern Sudan, has had made 2 trips from Uganda to Kenya in the past.
After investigations, we shall arraign the lady in court.
Anti-narcotics police officers are now trying to establish the destination of the drugs and the cartel behind it. Denson Sarigo, KTN Prime.
Nominated Member of Parliament Sheikh Mohammed Dor has denied charges of inciting violence after allegedly offering to fund the separatist MRC group.
The MP was arrested in Nairobi yesterday and transported to Mombasa to face the charges. The MP's arrest follows his widely publicized comments in which he appeared to support the Mombasa Republican Council.
Well, he was released on a 2 million shilling bond, but as Aaron Ochieng reports, Dor's arrest and subsequent appearance in court has indicated the government's determination to deal a blow to the separatist MRC group and its sympathizers.
Sheikh Mohammed Dor was this morning arraigned in court in Mombasa after his arrest yesterday in Nairobi. He was charged with incitement to violence, a charge that he denied, and was released on a 2 million shillings bond. The arrest of Dor brings to 3 the number of persons who have so far been taken to court, with charges revolving around the Mombasa Republican Council. Whereas CID is investigating the activities of the group, it is the ruling by a 3-judge bench headed by Judge Francis Tuyot that seems to have given MRC a new lease of life after a ban outlawing its activities was lifted.
The declaration published in Gazette Notice 12585 by the Minister of State for Provincial Administration and Internal Security that Mombasa Republican Council is an organized criminal group is unconstitutional and is hereby lifted.
Although the government appealed against the ruling, MRC's activities became more open after the ruling that even the Prime Minister and other leaders in the government accepted that a dialogue needs to take place in order to address the concerns raised by the group.
They may have legitimate concerns and issues that they are raising, but the manner in which they are raising these issues and the process they are undertaking in actually articulating these issues is a matter of concern to all of us as Kenyans.
Suluhisho sio kujitenga na Kenya. Suluhisho ni kuketi chini na kuzungumza na kupata njia. Sio kusema ati pwani si Kenya. Kama pwani si Kenya, pwani ni Tanzania.
According to a recent survey, majority of Kenyans do not believe the group should be allowed to operate freely and that its activities should be outlawed. The police, acting on intelligence information, swung into action and arrested the MRC leaders early in the week after it emerged that the group was planning to disrupt national examinations and even the forthcoming voter registration exercise, along with their growing demand for cessation from the coastal region.
If you interfere with a child who is doing examination, what are you demonstrating? Indeed, what are you demonstrating? That you are stupid.
The government's appeal against the ruling that lifted the ban on the activities of the group will be heard on the 6th of November, but the new internal security minister has vowed not to relent on his quest to crush the group, even with a court order.
These are people who are not really meaning any good for this country.
What is clear is that the court had warned MRC not to engage in illegal activities. With MRC leaders' cases going on in court, it will be interesting to see what action the court takes, if any, against the MRC leaders who are now cooling their heels as guests of the state. Aaron Ochieng, KTN Prime.
All right, we have a general election coming in less than 6 months' time. Let's look at what's happening on that front. Prime Minister Raila Odinga is moving to try and reassure ODM supporters in Western Kenya less than a week after KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli began a new push to unite Western presidential aspirants around UDF's Musalia Mudavadi. Raila went straight to Webuye today, where the area MP Alfred Sambu last week defected to the UDF party. Here is KTN's Noah Otieno with the report.
The Prime Minister has begun what will run into a weekend of almost 10 rallies in the Western Bloc, where his allies insist he still enjoys a strong political support, but where Musalia Mudavadi's UDF party is now keen to unseat him. His first stop was in Cheptais in Mount Elgon, Bungoma County, where the Tachoni elders met him and declared their support for him. Raila concluded day one with a rally at Muliro Gardens in Webuye, an area whose MP Alfred Sambu has defected from ODM to the UDF party.
Raila akikuja hapa anakuja kuona watu wa Western. Hakuna mtu anafuata. Iko watu wamewekwa kwa mfuko ambao Raila anakikuja Western lazima aulize permission. Nikasikia bwana Sambu rafiki yangu ameruka. Na mjue ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Sambu mimi nimemjua kwa miaka mingi. Kwa sababu tumekuwa na yeye ameteresa, nataka mumtafute aje pamoja tufanye kazi pamoja.
The Prime Minister was camping in Mudavadi's backyard in what is seen as a strategic move to grab back the limelight in the wake of last weekend's unity talks between Musalia Mudavadi, Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula, and Federal Party of Kenya's presidential aspirant Cyrus Jirongo.
Miaka hizi mitano imekuwa ni kama mafunzo sisi kwetu katika serikali. Tunajua pale mbaya kuna hitilafu, tunajua pale kuna mianya, pale mbaya inavuja, tunajua pale mbaya kuna wizi, tunajua na pale kuna wezi, tunajua vile vile. Tunasema tukishika wale wezi tunawatoa na kupeleka pale mbaya wanafaa kwa.
Raila now says that those scaring the government employees in the provincial administration that they would lose their jobs are out to cause disaffection and anxiety.
Kuna wale wengine ambao wanasikia si nani ametoka hapa ameenda pale nini hapana. Sisi wanachungwa. Kuna wengine unaona anaenda namna hii ametereza tu. Kutereza sio? Naambia mpatie mkono nikuinue ukuje juu. Kwa mfano nimemwambia Sambu mpatie mkono yako simama uje juu. Rudi nyumbani sio?
Raila continues his rallies with a tour of at least 3 more constituencies in the Western region on Friday. Noah Otieno, KTN Prime.
Kenya National Congress presidential aspirant Peter Kenneth has lashed out at Prime Minister Raila Odinga over his remarks that the March general election will be a 2-horse race. The Gatanga MP dismissed the Prime Minister's campaign, claiming the race to State House is about performance and not reform, as touted by Raila. This is Eldoret North Member of Parliament William Ruto downplayed any rift in the G7 alliance. For more details, here is our politics roundup.
The Kenya National Congress presidential aspirant Peter Kenneth campaigned in Kisii, where he took on his rivals head-on. Kenneth was on the offensive, attacking Prime Minister Raila Odinga over his 2-horse race parable.
Hata kuna mwenzangu anaongeanga juu ya farasi, nasema I agree, there can be 2 horses, but only one performs. The rest ni number 2 kwenda nyu. So you need a performing horse.
On his part, Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka was in Lodwar, where he pledged to empower the Turkana community. The VP revived the Elemi Triangle debate contested between Kenya and South Sudan. Kalonzo claims given the role Kenya played in ending the Sudan conflict, the government of South Sudan should drop its affront on Kenya.
Mimi mwenyewe naweza kumwangalia President Salva Kiir kwa macho na kumwambia Kibish, ni kitu kidogo sana. Njia moja tu ya kusema asante kwa Kenya ni kusema nchi ya Republic of South Sudan na Republic of Kenya will never fight over Kibish.
In Nairobi, Eldoret North MP William Ruto was receiving defectors from, among other parties, PNU and Wiper Democratic Party to his URP party, all parties forming the G7 alliance. The Eldoret North MP was non-committal on whether his secret meeting with Prime Minister Raila Odinga has weakened the alliance.
that's a side story. Let's talk about URP for now. We'll talk about G7 when the time comes.
A few meters away, Justice Minister Eugene Wamalwa was welcoming new members to his new Ford Kenya party for the Senate, Governor and Member of Parliament positions at the party's headquarters. The Justice Minister allayed any fears of delayed voter registration process.
Tuko na wale watakaosimamia mambo ya usalama. Tuko na wale watakaosimamia that process. Lazima sote to support IEBC for us to meet the deadline. Tuko pamoja. So mkienda nyumbani, siku za kusajiliwa kama wapiga kura are only 30 days. Please come out.
Elsewhere in Kisii, the Restore and Build Kenya presidential aspirant Professor James Ole Kiapi called on voters to elect leaders who are development conscious and who have the interest of Kenyans at heart.
Msikubali kudanganywe tena, hata mara moja tena. Hakuna kudanganywa tena.
Samogina, KTN Prime.
And as all that is happening, remember we have some reforms happening in the country. One of them is the police reforms. The chairman of the National Police Service Commission, Johnston Kavaloti, says his commission will complete the process of interviewing and selecting 3 nominees that qualify to serve as Inspector General of Police by mid-next month. Kavaloti has expressed optimism that President Mwai Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga will then expedite the process and appoint a new Inspector General of the Kenya Police Service by December this year.
According to the functions and powers of the Inspector General, the new police boss will not necessarily be a police officer. Any interested Kenyan citizen or person from any other discipline service can apply for the top police job. Indeed, retired Major General Hussein Ali was recruited from the army to head the police force. The 3 top police positions must comply with the 2/3 gender rule. Over the years, police officers have been accused of brutality, torture and bribery. Some have been accused of being trigger-happy. During the post-election violence in 2008, police were blamed for fatal shootings, rape and political bias. According to the National Police Service Act, the Inspector General is expected to lead reforms toward a professional service. Some of the key functions of that office include implementing policy decisions, auditing and coordination of all police operations, preparing yearly budgetary estimates setting out priorities of the police, and commissioning research benchmarked against best practices. The Inspector General's office will also issue guidelines on community policing and ensure cooperation between the service and communities in combating crime. The police boss will also arrange to pay compensation to victims of police misconduct, apart from complying with Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity.
It should be a woman or a man whose social and moral character is beyond reproach. We are looking for a person who is a strategic manager. If there is a police officer that will land on, it will be fantastic.
Recommendations from the Kriegler Commission, Justice Philip Ranslick Tribunal, and the Police Oversight Implementation Committee will provide useful guidelines in the recruitment process.
And when people do apply, we shall take a look at them. We shall interrogate them. We shall ask the public to give us information.
But some activists have threatened to go to court to block the process.
It will be useful that we do not delay processes because we have interests that transcend the very obvious. And our interest and every Kenyan interest is reforming the police service.
Should the process run smoothly, Kenyans will have a new police boss before Christmas. Patrick Amimo, KTN Prime.
Time for us to remind you our big question tonight. We are asking you, should Sonko resign for bribing parliamentary staff? Please do send us your brief comments beginning with a yes or no to 8040 as you already are doing.
Mudusin Mwingi says, no, he was on a mission to prove that we, the Kenyan society, are corrupt. And he actually did prove that. Another SMS coming, it says, yes, Sonko should resign. He has made himself a laughingstock and given Parliament a bad name. This is Wilfred Abuya from Migori. More SMSs, actually very many of them, saying, Leah from Bungoma, Sonko should not resign because he wanted Kenyans to know how Parliament is corrupt. So to me, I don't think resigning will work out.
All right, certainly. Thank you for them. 8040 is the number. You're watching KTN Prime. We take a short break. After the break, more news from the counties. Now let's look at other news making headlines in our news from the counties.
We start with news from Alego in Siaya County, where relatives of 5 members of one family who perished in a grisly road accident on Tuesday on the Nairobi-Mombasa highway are still coming to terms with the sudden death of the 5. Lucas Okello, aged 65, the old man of the house who lost his wife, his son, daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren, still in shock. He is calling on well-wishers to help him defray burial cost. In Nairobi, residents of Kibera held demonstrations to protest what they termed as police laxity to deal with increasing cases of insecurity in the slum. They marched to the local chief's office demanding the transfer of police officers deployed there for alleged failure to deal with the organized gangs. From Meru, the Meru Council of Elders Njuri Njeke Meru has called on political leaders to keep and maintain peace during political campaigns and after the general elections. And finally, chiefs from Murang'a held peaceful demonstrations demanding communication from relevant government offices on their fate after the next general elections. They say that the new laws have not clearly spelled out their positions and expressed fears that they could be rendered jobless.
At the inquiry of the circumstances that led to the helicopter crash that killed Internal Security Minister George Saitoti and his assistant Oro Jode, discrepancies with the initial reports emerged when an engineer who had been tasked with overseeing the maintenance of the ill-fated helicopter took to the stand at the chopper crash investigations. Aristide Lomwamu claimed that he had been responsible for replacing a major component against the testimony of a witness who came before him. It also emerged that there had been 2 previous failures of the engine data recorder that was never recorded. The EDR is the real-time recording of an engine in a helicopter at any given time. The engineer said that he could not have allowed the helicopter to fly after a red light emerged, indicating a failure of the EDR, but he received an email from Eurocopter, the manufacturers of the aircraft, that it could fly for 200 hours.
If you've been looking for a house to buy or thinking of putting up a house yourself, the last 2 years have probably not been favorable for you. High interest rates have seen most prospective home buyers and developers halt any investment decisions, but now things could be looking up. A recent rate cut has renewed interest for housing units, with developers also keen to sell off stocks that have piled during the period.
Every Kenyan's dream remains one day to be able to buy a house, or actually have enough money to construct one. But over the last 2 years, that has been greatly checked by the high interest rate regime in the country. But what has the latest move by the Central Bank of Kenya done to spark construction boom in the country? The cost of owning a home has in the past 3 years spiked, leaving potential buyers chasing a dream that is now more than a mirage for most urban dwellers. A recent drop in interest rate was expected to bring with it relief for home buyers and developers, but has instead brought with it the intricacies that characterize the Kenyan housing market. Housing units that have seen stagnated demand have renewed interest from buyers, with developers asking more for the units, the after effects of high financing costs associated with the pricey loans last year.
I have to say that we're pleased with the trend. You know, I think everything has got a value, and the value is in a sense what the market will pay for it, and the house prices in Green Park have been steadily increasing. You know, when we first sold a house here, we were looking in the range of 4 to 5 million, and that same house now is selling for over 12 million.
Sitting on 150 acres in Athi River, Green Park Estate with over 1,500 homes is an example of the potential in the housing market, with the demand for houses rising on an annual basis. But such investments come with a mix of challenges, from financing to construction costs. But when would be the right time to come into the market with new investment in the property market?
I think next year might be a good time. So it's a good time to start. It's perhaps not a good time to be sitting on housing stock that isn't sold, with somebody being owed money for the development, because that's very difficult, and it's easy to lose sleep in these circumstances.
The only certainty, however, in the property market is that demand will always outstrip supply. What remains to be seen is how concerted efforts from both the public and private sector will turn out homes that best fit buyers. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
The coastal region has over the last 1 year been on the spotlight of spats of insecurity both from within and across its borders. This has seen a decrease in tourist numbers, but players in the sector are putting on a brave face, assuring tourists of their safety while visiting the region.
For decades, the coastal region stretching from Mombasa to Lamu has been the pride of Kenyan tourism, earning the country billions of shillings in foreign exchange as tourists, both local and international, flock the region to enjoy the sun, sand and the beaches. However, the region has over the last 1 year been a victim of circumstances from the outside threats like the Al-Shabaab terror groups and within from the Mombasa Republican Council, popular as MRC. These have come with various travel advisories and sanctions to the region, scaling back on tourist numbers. But players in the sector insist that there is no cause for alarm.
We've taken all the necessary steps, as industry players to make sure that the hotels are safe, our guests are safe. Remember, we also want to remain safe. And the attacks that have happened, really, they have not targeted hotels so far. Not because they don't want to target hotels, but basically because we've taken a lot of measures to make sure that, we don't fall prey.
The latest of such advisories KTN Business has learned was sent to the staff of the United Nations Nairobi office. The security advisory discouraged staff from what it called unnecessary travel to the south coast, especially road travel through Mombasa to the south coast.
It is, I think, not proper to issue advisories at this particular point in time based on these little things that have been seen, because our police force have also demonstrated capacity, and we've seen them moving in swiftly to be able to contain the situation. And therefore, it is an election year. We must be able to appreciate this, and these are some of the challenges that we've been experiencing time and again.
From January to date, figures indicate that the number of tourists visiting Kenya's coast fell by 22% compared to the same period in 2011. These players largely attributed to concerns over violence in the region and the cost of landing rights in the traditional tourist hotspot. Joseph Bonyo, KTN Business Today.
Despite registering a 22% drop in its profits for the financial year ending June 2012, retail chain Uchumi has set up an ambitious branch expansion program. The chain store says it will, in the next 12 months, open 8 new stores across Kenya. Philip Kitani reports.
Just a second, let him give. Uchumi's chief executive Jonathan Siano said the retail chain will be opening 3 outlets in Uganda, 1 in Tanzania, and 8 in Kenya during the 12-month period to June 2013. The new branches will be in the coast region, 2 in Nairobi and 1 each in Kisii, Eldoret, Kisumu, and Maua in Meru. Essentially, this is something that we breathe, we smell, we see, and we touch. And we have the confidence all those branches that we have opened, and particularly those that I mentioned earlier, are coming into fruition. So far, the retail chain has already spent 716 million shillings on new outlets and refurbishment of the existing branches. The retail chain says the aggressive expansion plan will be funded from internally generated funds. In its full year financial report, the firm saw its profit drop by 22% in what it attributed to high inflation rate in the period. The firm, which analysts say has made a remarkable return from insolvency, faces competition locally and across the region from Nakumatt and Tuskys in the quest to become the region's retail chain king. If you recall, 2-3 years ago, we had a lot of challenges in terms of import of goods, of foods. And what is happening now with the integration in East Africa, there will be movement of goods that we expect to be coming up. The next one is the good rains that are coming down. That is our greatest comfort. The retail chain expects sales to rise to over 18 billion shillings in 2012-2013 fiscal year from the current 13.9 billion shillings. Shareholders of the supermarket are expected to benefit from an 80 billion shillings dividend payout recommended by the company directors of 30 cents per share, bringing an end to a 10-year period of dividend drought. Philip Keitan for KTN Business Today.
Let's cross the borders now, beginning with South Sudan, which expects its oil exports to come back to the market in 3 months. But the government ordered oil companies to resume production on Thursday, according to reports on Reuters news agency. Last month, it reached a deal with Sudan to resume exports through northern pipelines after shutting down its output of 350,000 barrels a day in January in a row over fees The biggest foreign operator, Dar Petroleum, which is run by Chinese state firms Sinopec, the China National Petroleum Corps, and Malaysia's Petronas, said last month it expects an initial output of 180,000 barrels a day within 3 months. Last month, an official said South Sudan will only pump oil at about 70% of its former capacity, as it would take up to 6 months for oil to flow into the pipeline from Upper Nile State and 9 to 12 months in the pipeline from Unity State. In Greece, and it has once again been hit by riots, even as top European leaders meet on how to avert another round of financial crisis. The protests are against demands by foreign lenders that the beleaguered nation institute deeper budget cuts to stay afloat. According to reports, flights are grounded, schools are closed, and most transport disrupted as the riots spread from Athens to the rest of the country. The protests put Greece's 3-month-old government between a rock and a hard place. Now, the country, analysts say, is due to run out of money next month unless it can convince its creditors to release more bailout money. Let's look at how the euro is faring against the shilling and also how your money behaved at the stock exchange.